You're welcome to the Gavel. I'm Linda Akibi. The storm raised over remarks made by the Minister of Communications, Mr. Issa Pantami, continues to rage. Mr. Pantami is facing allegations of making extremist comments after videos surfaced online showing that over a decade ago he supported extremist groups like Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Many Nigerians have called for his resignation or sack because of these statements. Now, the minister has admitted to making the controversial statements, but said his views on such groups have changed. His explanation has not satisfied many Nigerians who insist on his removal, but there are many others who have declared support for him. Now, during the week, the minority leader in the House of Representatives, Ndudi Elumelu, brought the matter before the lower chamber.
Mr. Speaker, I have a petition.
Lawmakers in the House of Representatives have begun reacting to the allegations of extremism against the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Mr. Issa Pantami. Mr. Pantami is facing major criticisms over his views several years ago, which seems to show his support for terrorism, and his teaching showing religious extremism, which some Nigerians believe are capable of causing division in the country and fueling insecurity.
That will be put in place.
Just before plenary on Wednesday, April the 21st, the Chairman House Committee on Navy, during an interaction with journalists, responds to questions on how and why the National Assembly did not make any reference to these comments during his ministerial screening.
The National Assembly and DSS is not God. You will never get every information about every individual during confirmation. Because the NAS is not God. You don't have the capacity to know everything about me. So it is what the DSS know that they recommended. And it is equally what the National Assembly saw that they recommended. And if you want to hold DSS and National Assembly responsible, what of you as an individual? Over 180 million Nigerians, you were unable to. The announcement was made, the man was presented to the floor of the Senate, he was screened, and no individual out of over 180 million Nigerians was able to remember that comment made, to write petition to the National Assembly for them to act or not to act. So if National Assembly should be held responsible, or the DSS, the people of this country should equally be held responsible, because they were unable to do their job by bringing the information to the National Assembly. Until and unless you bring the petition that this man have done this and that in the past, because of the incapacity of both the DSS and National Assembly to know everything about everybody. If there was an issue prior to the screening and the National Assembly did not act on that information, then you will hold them responsible.
Of the Federal Republic.
At the commencement of plenary, the minority leader of the House raised the point of order to support calls for the resignation of the embattled minister.
There had been insinuations that he has direct links and personally subscribes to the extreme Islamic beliefs of Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and Boko Haram sects. Evidence compelling the cyber cafes to buttress and lend strong credence to a relationship and existing mutual collaboration between him and the deceased Yemen terrorists. Recently, Mr. Speaker, while the minister was answering questions during his daily Ramadan lecture at Anom Mosque a few days back, he owned up to the fact that he took extreme positions in support of the brutal exploits of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban out of ignorance, claiming that he was young when he did that, but now he's matured. Mr. Speaker, my worry is that I'm a serving member of this chamber, and for the past few days, I've been inundated with calls from my constituents claiming that if it is right that this House, that they've always seen talk about insecurity, can sit on this floor and tolerate the fact that a serving minister, where there are allegations of him being a member of Al-Qaeda or Boko Haram, owned up and said that he did whatever he did because, as at that time, he was a youth. And he's still serving in this administration. Mr. Speaker, I feel that it would be out of place for me to sit here and allow this chamber not to speak about it and totally call for his resignation or suspension.
I think you came under the wrong order because you have not stated how your privilege has been breached, or the privilege of the House. But your point of order is well noted. As you know, under privilege, we don't debate such issues if it comes under privilege.
Mr. Pantami has since apologized for the comments, saying they were made while he was much younger. President Muhammadu Buhari has finally reacted to the allegations of extremism against Mr. Pantami, the communications minister, and the calls for his resignation. In a statement signed by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu, it stated that the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, is currently subject to a cancel campaign instigated by those who seek his removal. They do not really care what he may or may not have said some 20 years ago. That is merely the instrument they're using to attempt to cancel him. But they will profit should he be stopped from making decisions that improve the lives of everyday Nigerians. The minister has rightly apologized for what he said in the early 2000s. The views were absolutely unacceptable then and will be equally unacceptable today, were he to repeat them. For he has publicly and permanently condemned his earlier utterances as wrong. The minister has been leading the charge against illegal data deductions and pricing. In the wake of the allegations against the communication minister, some Nigerians have questioned the role of the National Assembly in vetting public servants. The National Assembly, specifically the Senate, screens ministerial nominees selected by the President for different portfolios. Mr. Isa Pantami and other then ministerial nominees were screened by the Senate before their confirmation as ministers. The State Security Service is expected to do a background check on nominees and send to the Senate ahead of the screening.
Clearly, this National Assembly cannot excuse itself from the embarrassing situation we are facing with Minister Pantami. Because you cannot say that you had a responsibility to screen and approve of presidential nominations and this mess is going on, Let me take your mind back to what happened with Mr. Ibrahim Magu. The Senate, the 8th Senate, twice or a couple more times, twice. They turned down that nomination from Mr. President, and they had good reasons. They were able to come up with a report from the SSS to say, look, because of this and because of that, So what happened to this 9th Senate? The question has been raised is that did they not have some intelligence briefing or reports from the relevant quarters? If they had it, what did they do with it? Even if they didn't have it, I mean, this is an indictment on the National Assembly, and it further validates the impression that many Nigerians have about this National Assembly as being not just a lackey of the executive, but an embarrassing one for that matter.
Nevertheless, some lawmakers have differing views on whether the communication minister should resign or not.
The issue of security is a very sensitive issue, as we are all aware, and it's not something that somebody can rush without doing the proper investigation. I've been hearing this thing on both print and electronic media, social media, and other opinion leaders in the society, that this is what happened. And they even said, because I did not hear him saying, that he has been saying that in the past because by then he was not knowledgeable enough about what is happening in Islam. He was not, he was a very young man, the age was not on his side because he started preaching at the age of 13. And by then there was this kind of youthful exuberancy. And later on, based on the evidences available in the teachings of Islam, and based on maturity, he later on realized that he was wrong when he met that statement. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't want Nigerians to take this as a serious matter, because it's part of the Geneva Convention that even a terrorist who is a repentant terrorist should be incorporated in the society. It's there in the Geneva Convention, and it's known to everybody. So even if to me, to the best of my knowledge, even if Pantami met that statement in the past, and now he is remorseful of that particular statement, disassociating himself with position of that particular statement at that particular period, and he says that now he has gotten enough knowledge to convince him beyond reasonable doubt that that particular position was wrong. I think there is nothing wrong in that. I am not saying he shouldn't be investigated, because my own opinion is that even if Pantami is a non-terrorist and now he has, what do I call it, he has changed. The Geneva Convention said he should be incorporated in the society. But meanwhile, that is not going to stop lawmakers or any other agency from investigating the matter to confirm beyond reasonable doubt whether he's not only regretting making that particular mistake.
I stand with security agencies, especially the SSS, one of the reports that I saw today, that they have due diligence on every individual that is to be nominated at whatsoever level. It is now left for the organization that wants to employ you, whether he is comfortable with the report that the security agencies has given. And with even the Pantami issue now, I can assure you, to me, when some people were saying that the House did not debate the matter, number one, yes, the fact that it did not come as a motion, but secondly, I can assure you, we could have turned that House upside down if that debate was turned, because in as much there were facts, or in as much as the audio was there, Pantami issue and so on and so forth, and the SSS and everybody's there, still you will have people for and against, and the House will be on turmoil. But ours is that anybody that is in authority, anybody that has some level of extremism, be it Christian, be it Muslim, at whatsoever level, against national interests first, should be taken very, very seriously. So to me, it's something that the presidency should take and should look into it, because it's now going to be an embarrassment if the international community will take an action against our own minister before us doing something. So it's something that, yes, if such allegations are there, you can step aside. If such pending investigation, if such allegations are there, a lot of issues that but my own major fear and concern is that we should not allow the international community to now take a decision against our own national interests that will now make us look that our security agencies did not give the right information, that this is the person that is serving, and the international committee have now done due diligence and now said, look, we cannot allow, they now put a no-fly zone on him. So that's going to be a very big embarrassment to us. So against party sentiments, against religious sentiments, against any sentiments, let's look at national interests. And if we're looking at national interests, that would give us the first guide in addressing the issue of insecurity. Many reports have come in before then that bandits, or be it Boko Haram or the insurgents, have infiltrated every agency of government. And so it's something that due diligence of security agencies should be on the table of the president, that among the National Assembly members, if there is any, among ministers, if there is any, among commissioners, if there is any, among governors, if there is any, that would be on the table of Mr. President. So it's now left for Mr. President to now see how he'll be able to sieve all those areas because of national interest. But if we continue to move in Nigeria along religious sentiments and along ethnic sentiment, then we have not seen the worst for it yet.
You're welcome back to the Gavel. Plenary sessions held at the National Assembly during the week, and both chambers legislated on some critical issues. The Senate approved President Buhari's external loan request of $1.5 billion and 995 million euros. And its Committee on Health directed the Minister of Health to put together a policy to compel all government hospitals to procure locally manufactured syringes. In the House of Representatives, lawmakers debated the insistent jailbreaks in the country and have also directed its relevant committees to investigate this problem. Now, these are just some of the major activities in the National Assembly during the week.
The Senate has approved President Buhari's external loan request of $1.5 billion and 995 million euros. President Buhari had written to the Senate in May 2020 requesting for approval for external borrowing to finance the 2020 budget deficit as well as priority projects to manage the COVID-19 pandemic. The loan is to be financed by the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, and Export-Import Bank of Brazil.
The committee most importantly notes that the indicative terms and conditions under which the loans will be borrowed. There are no unusual or onerous conditions attached, and the terms do not in any way compromise the sustainability of Nigeria's economy or impugn the integrity and independence of Nigeria as a sovereign nation.
However, some lawmakers have reservations and want to see the terms and conditions of the loan.
Within the 5 years moratorium, we are still going to be paying, servicing the interest on the loan before the repayment starts for 5 years, for 25 years. Who is going to bear the cost of the interest? We need to find out what is in the agreement.
Meanwhile, the Senate also approved and passed a total budget of 257.18 billion naira for the Nigeria Customs Service for 2021. The upper chamber also increased the customs revenue target from 1.465 trillion naira to 1.678 trillion naira.
In 2021 fiscal year, the Nigeria Customs Service target was pegged at 1.65 trillion, comprising of 1.26 trillion for federation accounts and 197.996 billion for non-federation accounts respectively. The Senate committee deemed this target to be inadequate while taking cognizance of the recently accepted Finance Bill of 2021. All this will significantly increase the revenue target of the Nigeria Customs in 2021 budget year.
But some lawmakers question the appropriation of some line items in the budget.
Retirement benefits is paid to somebody who is retiring. I have never seen where somebody is retiring and is being paid incentive of up totaling 2 billion to be paid to people who are already retiring as incentive.
Despite the concerns raised, the Senate approves a 257.18 billion naira budget for the Nigeria Customs Service with a personnel cost of 99.7 billion naira and capital cost of 137.9 billion naira. Meanwhile, the Senate Committee on Health is directing the Minister of Health to put together a policy to compel all government hospitals to procure locally manufactured syringes. The committee gave the minister a 6 weeks deadline to carry out this directive. The Senate Committee on Health gave this directive during an interactive meeting with local manufacturers of pharmaceutical products, the Ministers of Health and Trade and Investment, as well as the Director General of NAFDAC. The meeting is intended to examine the failure of government agencies to implement the backward integration policy on local production of syringes 5 years after it was validated.
Implementation of Executive Order 3 and 5, and then encouraging full utilization. And on that, we have two agreements. One, the ministry to develop a policy within the next 6 weeks of giving exclusivity of procurement and utilization of syringe and needle only manufactured in Nigeria by all teaching hospitals. And then they will be able to do that. And anybody that fails that, of course, once there's a policy, there will be sanctioned. The second to that part, which is also part of the utilization, is the MPCDA regarding the syringe and needle used for immunization for vaccines that are bought or procured with Nigerian money, that there should be no any other Anidu coming from any other country other than Anidu that is manufactured in Nigeria. We want a policy on that, and we give 6 weeks deadline so that the committee will monitor that.
The Senate, through its Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund, is ramping up efforts to upgrade the Yaba College of Technology and Federal Polytechnic Ilaro to universities of technology. It is also making similar moves to grant legal status to the Nigero-French language village, Badagry, Lagos State. In his presentation on the bills at a public hearing, the sponsor, Senator Solomon Olamilekan Adeola, says upgrading these institutions will enhance and develop educational institutions as well as human resources in Nigeria.
The establishment of this University of Technology will go a long way in addressing the college of the huge demand and requisite education institution for mega city of Lagos State. From all estimate, projection and demographic studies, Lagos State population is over 20 million and will continue to grow, and a mega city with mostly youthful population require adequate and requisite education institution. The establishment of the Federal University of Technology Yaba will address the huge demand for the technology-oriented education. We advance the technology development of our dear nation as well as human resources development among our teeming youth.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has mandated its Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Services to investigate the high acceptance fees charged by tertiary institutions in Nigeria, following a motion raised by Representative Julius Ihonvere. The House is worried that the arbitrary high acceptance fees charged by some public universities on new students across the country has become a matter of great concern to many families. The Green Chamber is concerned that their consequences of exorbitant acceptance fees in public universities have led to many indigent students losing their admission as a result of their inability to afford the fees. The committee is to report back within 4 weeks for further legislative action.
While some of the institutions are charging minimal fees, others are charging astronomically, whereas others do not charge anything. While most institutions do not charge acceptance fee against tuition fees, thus raising the question as to whether the institutions were not established under the same laws. Further aware that if the situation is unchecked, acceptance fees may surreptitiously become the school fee, thus affecting the number of students that may gain entry into higher institutions in Nigeria. Worried that the dire consequences of exorbitant acceptance fees in our public universities have led to many indigent students losing their admission as a result of their inability to afford the initial acceptance fees.
The House of Representatives is to investigate the incessant jailbreaks in the country. Lawmakers are worried that the jailbreaks will only continue to fuel insecurity in the country. The matter was raised as a motion of urgent public importance by Representative Chudi Murmur, who expressed concern about the security structures at the prisons.
These recent jailbreaks, particularly the Owerri case, where over 1,844 inmates were released and operational tools completely destroyed, have heightened insecurity in the country. Disturbed that the forewarning of the jailbreak was allegedly not acted upon by concerned security agencies to prevent the attack despite proximity to the correctional center. Also afraid that this pattern of jailbreak, the audacity and the sophistication with which it was carried out, portends greater danger for the country. Also afraid that the armed squad of the Nigerian Correctional Service in its present form and character might not be properly and adequately equipped to deal with these challenges, hence the need to strengthen the security architecture of the service, cognizant that occurrence of jailbreaks are mostly consequential effects of poor prison management and a situation that best describes the Nigerian correctional facilities, of course an indication of a failed prison system.
Now this is where we call it a day on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.